One of my favorite foodie movies is Chef, which debuted in 2014. Chef is basically a real-life Ratatouille. In the movie, the protagonist, who's played by Jon Favreau, loses his job at a top restaurant in LA and ends up running a food truck. Now, I don't want to ruin the movie just in case you haven't seen it. However, I will say that a common thread throughout the movie is the power of two things: social media and the influencers who criticize, applaud, rate, and discuss food. For our 5th episode, we continue the discussion on how the restaurant industry is navigating COVID-19 with two professional foodies, Daybar and Phil. Daybar and Phil run the Eat, Drink, Explore podcast, which highlights local and other New England-based restaurants and their delicious cuisines. Their relationships with restaurant owners and chefs provide them with unique insight into the industry. Insight that is invaluable to our discussion about the future of restaurants and how their evolution to remain financially solvent and culturally relevant may unfold. The world is authentic, and so when we discussed profanity before recording, I assured them that I wanted all their authenticity and nothing less. Too often we abandon ourselves and code switch to find comfort when really we just want to say the episode has explicit language in case there are any young ones around. I'd like to thank Amy at the Work Bar in Salem for allowing us to record there. The conference room where we recorded the episode had a little echo, so thanks in advance for being open to listen to less than clean audio. Finally, in the 3rd section of this episode, there's a glitch because I foolishly hit the stop button while Phil was mid-sentence. Slowly but surely, poco a poco, I hope to get better at this podcast thing. I'm Jarrett Carpenter, and this is Wi-Fi Water.
Is your light just going to be chilling up here the whole time?
Doesn't have to.
I mean, I don't care.
Okay.
This question.
So today, we're here with Phil and Daybar.
Hola.
From Eat, Drink, Explore podcast. And we're going to talk about all things having to do with the food industry. And I'm going to let them talk about their why, how, and what. So if you guys want to give us a background of your podcast. And I also think we're going to start before I started talking when you guys were giving your little back and forth, because why not? So
most people do love that shit.
That's really the gold. That's really the gold. Sometimes when a podcast feels too stiff, it's not real. It's not authentic.
No,
it's just, and you can feel that through you're listening. You're like, that's just not.
You can also tell when people have it scripted out and then it's reading. It's so obvious and it's so hard to listen to.
Not necessarily. I like some scripted podcasts. All right. Well, anyway, so I'm Jay. This is Phil. We have a podcast called Eat, Drink, Explore, where we just talk about food and bev, the industry, cooking techniques, places we've eaten and drank, things that we're just learning about the industry as well. Kind of
really
anything
we want to.
Food.
Yeah. If we can even remotely relate it to food, sounds good. Let's fucking do it.
Yeah. We just we go.
What do you mean remotely relate? You see a photo on Instagram and you're like, yo, 60-minute podcast.
Let's talk about it. Yeah. No, just we've the past couple episodes we've been doing a little bit of social justice type thing. So it's not directly related to food, but I'm a big believer in food is community, and when food is, I won't say done properly, I'm not sure the word I would use, but eating together, there's nothing that can bring people together like food. There's nothing in this planet that you can go to any culture, and if you make a good meal and people sit down, they will enjoy themselves. And I feel that's one of the few things, maybe music as well, is another thing that's across all cultures.
Sometimes sport can do that.
Sport can. Sport would also bring more debate than
division. Division. That's true.
There's no debate over food. It's this is a good meal. Everybody agree. Okay, let's enjoy it.
It's true.
You're this is a good sports team. There's gonna be that one asshole that's actually my team is So it's a little bit different, but So it just, we feel the community at large has the food community also part of the community at large because it crosses all cultures. So
totally.
Talking about social justice, it still relates back because it's part of that community.
Yeah, and one of the things that actually, if you go to the Eat, Drink, Explore podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, the episode that you guys put up where you kind of, went a little bit off the normal foodie and drink script, and you talked about social justice. It was super powerful, and I listened to that, and I highly, recommend that. I mentioned to Daybar that I think social justice and food equity and access go hand in hand. Working with international development and understanding, nutrition, malnutrition, those type of statistics and these types of things, and the access to produce that people have, and how there's so many communities around the world that produce things, but they don't even have access to it. So many people that produce quality coffee out of Guatemala and Colombia can't turn around and buy that quality coffee. Just as an example, same thing has happened with like quinoa. And specialty items that we can go walk into a store and get.
Avocados is another thing.
Avocados is another
the largest producer, and it costs like $30 to buy an avocado in Mexico. It's crazy.
And avocados is interesting too, because in some places they have, like when I was living in Guatemala, that's how people would like thank me for some of the work I was doing. I'd come by and they'd be like, "Profe," and they'd give me a bag of avocados because they have an avocado thing in the back, and if they don't use them, they're gonna go bad. And so that was like a currency. And so food is super powerful. And like, I never thought about the power of social justice in food until like Anthony Bourdain, when he passed, people started talking, especially from like the Latinx community. They came out and they're like, "Yo, this dude has like, since the early days from his book, come out and been like, you see every restaurant in New York, guess who's the backbone of that? It's Latinx, it's immigrants who are in the back. It doesn't matter,
would completely collapse tomorrow if you took every immigrant in this country and kicked them out. The entire industry would disappear overnight.
Yeah. And I don't know much about this topic, but it's something that I want to try and explore a little bit more on, is that the whole backroom dealings that the Trump administration did with trying to keep farmers, who they always argue are illegal immigrants, or people who work on farms are illegal immigrants here. Undocumented. Thank you. Undocumented. Because I'm an alien myself. You know what I mean? I can't stand that term, but
what planet did you come from, Daybar?
Let's talk about it for a second. No, but he really tried to slide that one under the carpet. All these people are here. They're trying to keep them here to produce food for America during a pandemic, and they're allowed to stay here. There's no argument about that. But what happens once the pandemic is over, quote unquote, once everything's done, he goes back to harassing these communities again that we're here protecting our food safety and everything. That just stressed me out, and not a lot of people are talking about it.
Yeah, I mean that is a deep hypocrisy, and so one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you guys on here today is because between the small restaurants in the local area and just for restaurateurs anywhere, I think what you provide is invaluable, because you turn people listen to you can get turned on to go to a restaurant that's actually in their town that they've never even thought about. Because what happens is normally we have our staples, and like anything in the world, we stay in our comfort zone. It's why we always order, 5 or 6 different things. But people like you who go out and basically, I'm sure you've had food where you've tried to be like, "Oh, this is going to be bomb," and then it was bad. But you do a service. You do a service to everyone else, because then maybe, you'd be like, "Hey, go here. But check out this." You're probably not going to say, "Don't check out that," but you'll probably check out this. Yeah. That's what's up. And I think that is super important. And so that is more at the, that's close to the client, or the front facing part of the restaurant industry, which you guys are doing. But all the way down the value chain, what you're talking about is super important. It's tied to social justice, because how can people be essential workers one day and non-essential the next day? And that is a dangerous thing. And it's totally something that, we should talk about more, especially when we look at the restaurant industry. Because you're right, Phil. All of a sudden you said, "Hey, undocumented workers, the world over, not just the United States, you need to go back to where you came from." Yeah. Places would just bottom out.
Yeah. And honestly, I undersold it by saying the restaurant industry, the entire food supply chain is gone.
Totally.
From the picking of the farmers to the people cooking in the restaurant to the people getting it from the farmers.
Delivering your food.
Totally.
Completely
gone. I mean, how many Americans want to go get a college degree and then serve people in kitchens? Not many Americans. Phil did it, but not a lot of Americans want to do that.
Yeah.
They don't. So
90% of the people I worked with in all my years in the kitchen were non-white. Like, that's a straight up fact.
Yeah. And from somewhere else. Potentially.
Yeah, probably 75% of them were immigrant.
I mean, the people who choose to be in the food and beverage industry, that's like a calling, I feel like. When you're called to be a chef, you're passionate about providing that service for people. And it's almost like, I feel like it's a lost art sometimes it's undervalued.
It's an undervalued art, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and some people don't even appreciate it. There's so many ways to get instant food these days delivered to your house that you didn't have to prepare yourself. So I think it's undervalued, and some people don't even know how to do it. I don't want to call no, seriously, I don't call people out, but like one of Phil's sisters, she didn't learn from her mother how to cook. Phil's mom is a badass cook. Like that woman can throw down if she really has the time. She works full time, so she doesn't have time, but she didn't have the time to teach her daughters that, or at least one of Phil's sisters that. So one of his sisters is like in her early 30s now, just learning how to cook for herself.
Right.
Real food,
Right.
And so
mac and cheese.
No, I'm serious.
Real,
it's a lost art, and not a lot of people have that calling. So for the people who do go to school and do. But for people who do go to school, do choose the culinary industry and want to be there, that's a beautiful thing. There's not a lot of people who would, but the undocumented community that chooses to work there to create a living and an income for themselves, it's huge. They should be valued way more than they are. It's insane.
It is. Don't get me started.
I know. We'll go crazy right now.
No, go for hours about that.
Go crazy. I mean,
about the bullshit that leads to.
I totally, but I think it's so intertwined to what you do, and understanding that is important, and it's definitely something it's why. I was interested to have you guys here today because I think you guys are pioneers in some sense, and I think that you guys.
I know, right?
Well, there you go.
Feeling good right now.
Well, there you go. Father's Day. He's got his own mug.
I'm having a good life. You know what? Let's just cut today right now. I'm going to sleep.
Jarrett helped me do this.
Oh yeah, you guys planned this.
Yeah.
Just for that one word, you planned the entire day.
No, just
very good. I'm impressed.
Yeah, Phil's waiting for Ashton Kutcher to pop out. Gotcha.
Oh wow, that's an old school reference.
If you get that reference,
that's old school reference.
If you get that reference, you are older.
I'm a 7 days.
Isn't that crazy?
I know.
That show went off the air in like 2006.
I know, that's crazy.
Like,
there was like a whole generation of kids
that was gone.
Can you imagine the person who's listening to that and there's like Google Ashton Kutcher scare reference, and then they're just gonna get into Punk'd and go deep with it.
Oh God, I know. Oh,
what happened? You know what? This is the time to bring Punk'd back.
100%.
Like what better time? What better time to have people like. I don't know. Bring a little bit of like satirical happiness into everyone's life.
I don't really watch TV like that, but if they brought a Punk back right now, I would binge that shit. I would.
Why is that not on Netflix?
That
shit's hilarious.
On it, though. Who are those guys that have that show that we like binge?
Impractical
Jokers.
It's like,
you've never watched it, dude. That's a little rabbit hole you don't want to do.
Oh.
Phil literally spent.
I have seen every episode about 10 times.
10 times. It's
no
good.
joke. Whenever I'm like, I just need something to watch for like half an hour.
It's like Punk'd, but they do it in like a versus kind of way, where each person has to like top the next guy, and the loser team. Basically, the loser team has us to do a ridiculous stunt at the end.
So. That was bad talent.
What are you talking about?
So it's basically a hidden cam show where there's four lifelong friends compete to embarrass each other. I'm literally saying the fucking theme song. But it's basically like they go through a series of challenges and it'll be shit like, you gotta go get a guy to like, lick your toes or like just something like so stupid.
Wow, you're mansplaining what I just said is actually worse than what I have said. Seriously. No.
Whether it was a mansplain or not is also revealing Phil's fetish. The first thing that came to his mind is like, someone's licking your toes. It's Father's Day.
Yeah, this podcast is gonna be juicy. I don't know. Maybe wants to get to
I am not like trying. I do not have a foot fetish.
I don't know. He's kind of blushing now. He's kind of like, oh, I've shown all my cards.
I don't try to feed in any sexual way. But that's just so weird.
The Board of Health is worried. There's a foodie podcast with a foot fetish. Anyways, bringing it back. I will check out. What's it called? Impractical Jokers?
Impractical Jokers.
I'll check it out. I'm down.
It's good.
Well, the reason I said that because the last one I watched, the end of the challenge, that's what they have to do.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's what they had to do?
Like, for the end of the challenge, it was a joker's choice, so the other three guys were like, you need to go do one thing, and we're going to pick it. And he had to lick somebody's toes.
Did somebody let him do it?
Yeah.
Oof.
Some, 300 pounds funny-ass woman. It was disgusting.
Okay.
Wow.
This show's wild. You gotta watch it.
It's crazy.
Is it still on Netflix? I think I asked you like 4 times. You haven't answered me yet.
It's so the first 2 seasons on Netflix. The rest of it's on on demand, like on the TV or whatever. But you can find it. It's on YouTube. Like
the guys are pretty amazing too. We follow them on Instagram.
Yeah.
I feel like that and Punked for like restaurant openings would be amazing.
Why not?
You know, like as phases come in and people are like in line 6 feet apart trying to get what they're trying to get.
Yeah.
And Ashton Kutcher pops out without a mask. I was like, gotcha. I mean, we need a little spice with these phases, right?
Yeah, something.
I agree.
Something.
We need a little. Maybe you guys can take that up. Spice up the phases.
We're not that funny.
I was just thinking that. I was literally just thinking that. I was like, fuck, we're not that funny.
We're not that funny.
We're not sorry.
So tell us about Eat, Drink, Explore, and where it's going.
Okay, so actually, before we do that, sorry, are we an LLC or are we a proprietorship? I can't remember.
So we just have a DBA right now, but
Okay.
we're gonna be getting LLC.
Okay, that's what
we can actually do shit again.
Yeah, so we are a podcast, and like Jarrett said, our main goal is to really encourage people on places that we think are worth driving to and eating and drinking. But we also have a supper club on the side that we had started and launched prior to this whole mess starting, and we had actually launched 2 events, and they were fantastic. And these are events where we literally take a group of like 12 people out to a restaurant to dine in. We work with the chef to figure out a menu for the night. They definitely take more of the lead on that because, I mean, we love what they do, and we want them to,
individual chef.
Exactly. And,
right.
both chefs that we worked with did their thing, and they were like meals that we never could have in our wildest dreams imagined for them to do. But during these meals, we connect with everybody at the table. We do a lot of really fun icebreakers, and then we teach people about the food and beverage industry, like through different conversations and storytelling. So that's what we really miss, and it sucks that like our business was basically like we can't do what we were doing the way we did it.
It was
anymore.
literally that was just starting to take off.
People at a table.
Like, hey, by the way, nobody in restaurants.
Yeah, and you can't be together in groups. Like that's what we were doing.
Oh, okay.
So we've been trying to figure out a way to launch what we were doing, or at least the sentiment, and do it virtually. It's been a little bit difficult just because our industry that we're in, because we consider ourselves a part of it, has been so directly impacted. We were talking to business owners, I want to say in May, April, to partner and do like a virtual dinner where people could go to the restaurant and purchase some food and we could all jump on and talk about it. And a lot of the restaurants that we contacted, they're like, dude, we don't even know if we'll be open next week. Like, we can't commit to that. Like, they could not commit to anything in advance, even if it was a week in advance, because they were struggling. If you went online, you saw a lot of restaurants that were open for 2-3 weeks, testing out the model. They realized it wasn't sustainable and had to close down. Or restaurants that shut down immediately and saw other restaurants thriving, so tried it out and then had to shut down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was tough. It was really, really tough. And we couldn't, the way we wanted to do our supper club virtually, we couldn't do it that way. So we've kind of just been waiting for a lot of our friends to get back on their feet and for us to make a little bit more sense before launching. But we're hoping to be able to gather again soon, do what we were doing before, something similar to it.
Yeah, because I remember talking with you, and we were talking about, I had reached out and said, hey, I really want to do a supper club. I was in Colombia at the time.
Yeah. And
I was like, I really want to do a supper club when I get back. What does that look like? Do you have vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian? Like, do you have all of the foodie options for people, with whatever their interests are? Their dietary restrictions. Thank you. Yeah. And you said totally. And I think that was just so great. And so maybe now in the summer you'll be able to do that, because even just driving here, so many places now have stuff outside. So I feel like there's a situation where you could get a back patio.
So the thing with that is that, like, maybe we could tone it down, but we were doing like 12 people plus us, plus like the chef and all that.
Right, it's a lot of people.
And you can most places only do 6 people parties. So
now, with the phases.
Yes.
Oh, brutal.
You can't have more than 6 people on a table right now. And I believe if you have more than 4, like, they're supposed to be related. Like, you can't have like 6 like friends technically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not gonna. What are they gonna do? Checkbook and ID?
Yeah.
Like,
no, you're not related. You're out.
Yeah.
I know.
We have a different last name. Like, but I got married and I changed my name. Like, anyway. Wait, what did you say?
It's a whole mess. It'll be a whole mess. Imagine.
Yeah. But so like it'd be tough to do, but like we definitely want, like Jay was saying, is like want to do something, because now that restaurants are opening back up and Starting tomorrow, you can do indoor dining.
That starts tomorrow.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because I don't about the indoor dining. I don't know how I feel about that.
It's terrible. It's absolutely.
I have no clue. So it feels like it's.
Okay, so this is the thing. So I work in a food service business right now. I'm the other one, and I will tell you right now is that even just people coming in, it's a fucking mess. If people were sitting down and actually had tables to sit down and gather and shoot the shit or whatever you're doing, that is gonna be a disaster because when you're outside. It's like open air, you're more conscientious, people are walking by on the sidewalk, people are using masks. If the server comes over, they're literally coming over and be like, hey, what do you need? Servers cannot stop and chat with you. If it's indoors, people are gonna be trying to talk to the servers. It's gonna be more tightly packed. When it's indoors right now, a server needs to get food, they can walk through the restaurant and not worry. What if there's tables all of a sudden all over the place? What's that gonna look like? That's gonna be messy as hell. And I think having people forced to sit outdoors, it changes the way they act while dining.
What do you mean?
When you're outdoors, I feel like you're more conscientious of the fact because you kind of see the world around you. I feel like subconsciously, you're sitting on the sidewalk, you see people walking by, you see people driving by, you're more conscientious of the times that we're in right now, which is nobody knows because we've never gone through this.
Okay, so I'd have to agree with you about the behavior because what I'm noticing with this pandemic is we needed to change minds around the pandemic in order to make a big enough dent on the spread basically.
Mm-hmm.
Making people have to wear a mask, whether it's super effective or not, makes people fully aware at the same time that you need to be washing your hands. Be careful about what you're doing. Be careful about
stay away from other people.
I'm seeing so many people more aware of what's around them because they're being forced to wear, not forced, but told that they need to wear these masks. You know what I mean? Wow. So I think the people that do at least once you put it on, I feel like you're almost stepping into a whole. I don't know. The energy's different.
It's a mask.
You're more aware.
When before this did we put on a mask? Halloween.
Exactly.
When we literally transformed our persona to uptake something, to become something else. And I feel that you change your whole attitude. Before I go into this, I'm driving and get to the supermarket. And before I get there, if I ride my bike and I get to the supermarket, I'm like, oh, crap. Got to put on my bandana.
Yeah.
Your total thing changes. And I'm super interested about the phases. Because here's what I see, right? So I have a restaurant and I have my clam shack. And in the summer, people can eat outside and that's fine. But then in the fall, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And then even in the summer, I'm like, all right, 70% of my dining is still seating inside. What happens if a woman comes there and a couple comes there and they eat and in a couple of weeks, they test positive for COVID? And when they do the tracing, they're left to believe that it came from my experience, even if it happened in the parking lot, even if it happened when they went to see their grant, that's what they believe. I feel like that would tank a restaurant. And then all of a sudden now people on Yelp yo, there's COVID yo, that
exactly.
And so I feel like it's a catch-22. But if I don't open my clam shack, I can't maybe pay back my PPP.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the hook for other things. I know I got to pay my rent. I got to pay I got to pay either the rent or I got to pay the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
Either one is leaving me in a financial debacle. I've got to pay my staff. And the summer in New England is one of my biggest seasons because I'm a clam shack.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's no easy answers, and it's going to lead people, honestly, to a lot of gambling. And with so much uncertainty, like you're saying, you call people yo, in a week, we don't even know. How can we possibly plan for 2 weeks? So and that's why I wanted you here, because I feel like you guys see so much of what so many different restaurants are doing. And I'm not sure, and I guess this is a question, do restaurants talk to one another? Is there a community board where they're what are you doing to solve this napkin issue?
I think some of them do talk to each other, but what I know a lot of them do is they watch each other very closely and what they're doing.
Okay.
A lot of the chefs that we talk to, I notice they follow each other on Instagram. They check out each other's menus. Some of the chefs that we've had on podcast will go to other chefs' restaurants to sit and dine in there and see what's up. So I think everyone's really conscious about what their neighbor's doing as far as the industry goes. As calling and talking, maybe, I'm not really sure. But I do think each business is approaching it for them, within their scope. And it's funny, when you were just talking about restaurants closing down and stuff, I mean, I'm not going to name the restaurant, but a really popular restaurant in Beverly that Phil and I are huge fans of when we go there for a lot of major holidays, they shut down both their locations after being open for 2 months because they had a COVID outbreak. They have a location in Beverly and Boston, and they shut them both down.
For good?
Just for a while. You know what? It happened around Mother's Day. I think no, was it Mother's Day?
No.
So, you know what? I don't know when they shut it down, but they shut it down around a holiday because that's when I noticed. And they didn't say a reopen date. And I don't think it's shut down for good. I think they are going to reopen, but for the time being, it's like they were making burgers, they were doing their thing, an outbreak happened, and they just closed the doors, during COVID. So I think they'll come back, but it's interesting because that could be the story for so many other businesses now that they're going to be allowing indoor seating. And I think what Phil's saying is it's a valid fear because you're worried that people are going to think everything's back to normal. They're not going to be conscious about cleaning up after themselves, not littering because they're not outside. They're going to think they can just drop their napkins on the floor and it's fine, and the server will pick it up, and just unaware of like hygiene stuff. And
the other thing with
it can get disturbed. Yeah.
Right, because they're not in a typical dining experience.
Yeah, it's like we're back to how it was.
It really does change you, like whether you're doing that. And the other thing with being inside is that if you're inside a restaurant, you're required to wear a mask. How the fuck are you gonna eat something when you have a mask on?
Dude, brutal. It's like a suit.
You gotta like take it off between bites or like get this fork in between your mask.
You guys gotta get meals and just film yourselves trying to eat with masks and be like, how do you want us to do this?
Like,
and you're like,
what's happening here?
Well, when we went eating out in New Hampshire, I mean, we were far enough away from every table that Phil and I, we just both took off our masks off completely and were able to eat.
Outdoor seating.
It was outdoor seating. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's something I definitely think about when you're sitting indoors and stuff. It's like, how do you like try to protect yourself, the people around you?
And the second you take off your mask, somebody's gonna say some shit. Like, dude, I have a mask on. It's like, but I'm trying to eat. Like, I just ordered food to eat. Like, what do you want?
It sounds like a Saturday Night Live skit when you say that. You're like, table 23 doesn't have a mask. Get down. Oh my god!
Take them down!
Take them down! There's like lights and everything.
Rushing, yeah. Oh god! Imagine
people come out with like spray and start spraying you and shit.
And that's the thing. People's attitudes change too once they have the mask on. So I had a really weird interaction the other day. We were at one of our favorite coffee shops in Danvers, and Phil and I ordered our coffee or our drinks or whatever, and we waited by the little carousel that has the milk and everything. We tried to stand far enough back so we weren't in anybody's way.
Totally.
And there were several people who walked up, did their thing, and left. There was this older white gentleman who came by. He had a mask on, so I couldn't, and sunglasses on. I couldn't really see his face and a hat. And he was standing like probably 10 feet away from us.
And you guys didn't have masks on?
We had our masks on.
You had masks on.
So I had a mask on. So maybe you had your mask on.
Because I was drinking something else.
Yeah,
so my mask was down.
Phil has a bandana that he wears, and you had it around your neck, but you pulled it down to put your straw in your mouth. Yes, so you did that. But we're standing over there. So this guy's like staring at me, but he has sunglasses on, so I don't know where his eyes are, and his mouth's covered.
Totally.
And I just was so confused, so I'm looking at him, and I'm trying to figure out why this man's staring at me. I ignore him for a minute, and I start talking to Phil. He's still over there. He's making these weird motions. He's a very elderly gentleman. And finally, I'm like, oh, maybe we're too close to the bar. So we back up some more. Mind you, like I said, there were already maybe 5 or 6 people who had come and handled their stuff. So we back up. This guy comes and he does his thing, and then he walks away. On our way out, we noticed the same guy who was freaked out about coming within a small distance of us, standing next to a guy who wasn't like a friend or family member.
He was a stranger.
He owned the barbershop next door, just like the guy owns the barbershop next door. So standing right next to him, just talking, chilling, hanging out by the door. Phil's got the baby, a coffee in his hand. I have 2 drinks in my hand. I can't grab the door, and I said, oh God, I can't grab the door. So I was going to put my drinks down, grab it, and open it. The guy with the mask, who was staring at us earlier, walked super far away from us to the corner, and the gentleman who owns the barbershop put his stuff down and opened the door for us to go out. The whole interaction just freaked me out, and it was so strange because I didn't understand what was going on. And it's funny because first Phil felt like, oh, it's because Phil was like, so I immediately said, oh my God, was that guy racist? That was the first thing that came to my mind.
Sure.
I'm black. I mean, I'm sorry. Sometimes when shit like that goes down, it does. It's the first thing that crosses my mind. And I'm not proud of that. But Phil was immediately like, oh no, it was because I had my mask down. On our way out, though, Phil had his mask up. The whole interaction was so bizarre to me, and I'm still confused as to what it was all about. But I think there's going to be more situations like that, because you don't know how other people are feeling about COVID. It's like you're kind of tiptoeing around people's emotions.
Maybe somebody high risk, but they don't look like it.
Totally.
It jumps to conclusions. I can't imagine what it's going to be like when people are dining in restaurants. It's like I'm putting in a really weird incubator of like human behavior, where.
Oh, no, sorry, continue.
No, but that's all I was going to say. So that's another concern I have, because like you can only worry about yourself, do things, figure out shit out for yourself. You don't know what the other person's feeling, how other people are handling themselves during this time. And it's hard to even read facial expressions now when you're wearing masks.
It's so hard. Actually, before we go into this, we're going to take a quick break and we'll pick up right where we left off. So yeah, because and this is something that I think, when you're talking about, okay, so first of all, humans are strange. We're weird, right? How many times before COVID have you been walking out a door and you're like, all right, the person in front of me knows my presence, will probably hold the door.
Yeah.
Boom, the door hits you in the face because now you've looked down to text or something. And it's like, there is such a cultural, societal trauma that is going on because of COVID, because you don't know, like everyone in life knows someone who's struggling or they're struggling. Mm-hmm. That's just how life is. And so COVID has amplified that by about 10 times. And so you're right, Phil. Like if you're sitting in a dining room and there's somebody next to you and you pull down your mask to sip your Slurpee or whatever it is, and that person freaks out, it's also tough to judge their experience because maybe they've lost someone. Maybe they're immune suppressant. Maybe
they just beat COVID. Maybe they just fucking had it. Like,
maybe they just beat COVID and they got out of the hospital and they want to go eat a burger. And so it's so tough to tell. And I never even thought, before sitting down for this, that would even be a thing, because I just didn't think about it. And I'm not in the industry and I'm not thinking about behavior, in dining and out of dining. But I think we're going to see a lot of viral videos potentially of people
really
being like, are you kidding me? How are you taking your mask? I got like 6 kids right here.
No, seriously. Seriously. And now what are you going to have? Restaurant owners and hostesses and waiters being, referees during situations like this? Like, that freaks me out.
There's like offsides.
Seriously, I can't imagine. That really freaks me out.
It's funny you say that. So, the establishment I work at, we, as policy, we have markers on the ground 6 feet apart.
Yep.
And we have been told that, if people are getting closer than 6 feet, we are supposed to police them and tell them to back up. And I tell my staff, I'm like, I'm not fucking doing that. Because you don't know, maybe they're family, maybe they're maybe they're friends, maybe it's just like a big group of I'm not gonna be the one to be like, yeah, you guys are family. Are you guys together? I can't really tell. Back up, and it's if it was just me, I can do it. I'm a man, I'd be like, hey, what are you guys doing? But I have staff that's teenagers in the early 20s. It's I wouldn't expect them to go to a 40-year-old man and be like, hey, sir, can you back up from him?
I know.
That's just fucking awkward.
Not just that, but then you put yourself in a situation, like you said, you're policing. For example, Phil and me, we have a baby. His name's Burrito. That's on his government. But we each
First of all, I was in Colombia. And I was listening to one of your podcasts, and the people I was living with what are you doing? I'm like, oh, this is podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it's this really, cool couple, local couple. I don't really know them that well, but I look up to them. They're great. And their baby, you won't even believe this. Their baby's name is Burrito. And the Colombians are like, yo, that's terrible. Are they Latinx? Are they? Is there a Dominican and an Argentine? I'm like, no, here's a photo. And they were like, that's kind of what? Real speechless.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. And then so I was like, yeah, I guarantee that's their name. That's the government name. And then we looked, and I don't know where I looked, but you're like, his name is not Burrito. And I feel like I almost put money down. I'm like, no, these people named their kid Burrito. Don't come at me. So do you want to speak on that? Because
maybe we might change his name. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. So it came from the fact that he's actually Philip the Fourth. Yeah. It's Philip Andrew Coleman Bugler the Fourth is actually his full government name.
Philip Andrew Coleman Bugle the Fourth.
Bugler the Fourth. Yeah.
Bugler.
That's his actual government name, and that's my name, and that's my dad's name. So when we're all together, it's most people maybe know one Phil in their life. If you're blessed to know more than that, then that's good for you.
Stop the podcast. Stop the podcast. It just goes into Phil talking close to the mic. If you're ever blessed enough to know more than one Phil.
All my Phils are
Yo.
So it was just getting really confusing. Like somebody would say Phil, and like me and my dad would turn, and like in 5 years he gonna turn toward that. So it's like we need to give him
so
a
you
name.
can't do Big Phil, Little Phil, and then even littler Phil.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Mini Phil.
Big Phil, medium Phil, little Phil. Like that's just
But
fucking.
also when he was born, they wrap these babies up like little burritos and stuff, and they kind of like they do that.
Swaddle.
Yeah. So
swaddle,
I was like under some drugs after childbirth, and we're just sitting there. They handed him to me. He looked like a little burrito, and that's like when I started calling him burrito. And immediately Phil got mad. He got really upset and emotional. His parents found out I was calling him burrito. It was not pretty, and it just kind of stuck. And now everyone calls him burrito. I mean,
outside of my parents,
I think his parents refuse to call him burrito, but
they call him Phil.
Baby
Phil, or like our grandson Phil, or like something like that.
But I mean, he'll eventually grow out of the nickname. Do you know what I mean? I'm not gonna,
really.
I don't know. Maybe
I don't think he will.
I'm hoping he wears it like a badge of honor.
I think he's gonna. Can you imagine that kid's IG? Yo, these are my parents. I'm burrito. It's like some like low key cool DJ, but like
the burrito bugler.
It could be a blessing. It could be a blessing.
I think it's a blessing. But I was like betting these people. I'm like, that's the name. And then we looked it up, and it was Philip. Yeah, and it had like this longer sounding like like a princey name. And
that's why I said, why can't we do Philip Watts? It's like a fucking king.
I mean, it sounds like royalty.
And that's what I always say. I'm like, so why do we need a name him after fucking
He already
food
thinks he runs our life. Now we're gonna like. No, I'm good. I'm sorry.
He literally has a king's name and you want to call him a fucking food item. I'm like, I don't get it.
You want to call him a food item? I mean,
I fought this for so long. I refused.
Dude, I feel like you're still fighting. I don't think it's a past tense,
okay,
Phil.
Here's where I'm at with this. But right now, when he's 3 years old, I'm cool with it. But if people are still calling him this in like kindergarten and above that, then I'm like, that's a problem because that could lead to like a lot of like kid's name is
I'm
Burrito.
Sorry, I'm not
the
gonna
teacher's
lie.
like reading them the list, like, is Adam here? Is Nick here? Is Burrito
Why
here?
would we tell the school to call him
not...
burrito? We wouldn't do that. That's fucking dumb. Why would we tell the school to call him
Because the kid's gonna stand up and be like, my name's Burrito and I'm 4 years old.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Exactly.
If you raise a kid and you call him, first of all, I love it. I think it's the greatest. In the world we live in, like everyone's gotta do their thing.
Yeah.
And I love it.
I mean, we'll see what happens. I think we're gonna look to him, see which way he wants to go with that. If he wants to be called burrito, we just call him burrito. Also, I'm sorry, our kid's kind of like he's like this. He's a tough little guy. Like I don't see him being picked on or like pushed around by anybody. If anything, he's gonna get all the other kids to be calling themselves burrito. Like
I mean, I feel like you guys.
I will give you that.
I feel like you guys need to sign a contract with Chipotle and be like, you give us money.
Yeah.
This is our kid. His name is Burrito.
Yeah. He'll
Like-
make things happen for you guys.
$50,000 a month.
Yeah.
Easily. Minimally.
And one of those black cards that you get free meals every day.
I know. Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Chipotle black card?
Yeah.
It's
They give it to athletes and stuff.
so like celebrities that they get
It's
one
real
free
guys.
meal a day, $365.
You know what? I think that those things are genius because it creates exclusivity immediately. And the reality of it is, because I remember as a kid, it was like somebody won something and they got like, we'll say free McDonald's. And when you're a little kid, you're like, oh, McDonald's is great. It comes with the toy, the fries, the soda, the burger. And then you start to think, you're like, who wants the same thing every day? It would be hell.
Yeah.
You would literally, I mean, the guy did it. What's it? Where he drank, he ate McDonald's 3 times a day.
28.
For 28 days for, what was it, big fat something?
I know what you're talking about.
I gotta look.
But anyways, look it up. But anyways,
hungry.
he did it as a challenge because it was so difficult. So I love, and I think the marketing behind that is brilliant.
Yeah.
Because even if someone's like, you love a certain liquor, and you're like, oh my god, I get this liquor for
not
life,
gonna drink it all.
you're gonna drink that for 2 more years, and then you're never gonna drink it again. So they're actually making a killing.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And these athletes too, they're seen walking around with the bags going into the establishments to pick it up.
I didn't even know that.
Smart, yeah.
I love Chipotle.
Yeah.
So in the previous episode, we speak with Jesse Chauvin. He grew up between Marblehead and Swampscott, so a North Shore guy, and he's lived in Guatemala almost 15 years. And I know you guys checked out the episode. But he, he's and he'll, if he hears this, he's probably gonna be angry. But I always say he's like kind of like the Chipotle of Guatemala, but he's doing it better.
Oh, really?
Supersize me, by the way.
Supersize.
We should have known because that's like their thing. Like you want to supersize that.
Totally.
Okay.
But so he talks about that, but he does organic produce, and he's constantly like supporting communities. And so like on that tip, how have you guys seen the industry kind of come together to tackle these obstacles? Because COVID is something we've never dealt with in our life.
You know what's been really cool to see is like the Smoke Shop BBQ and a bunch of other restaurants that we've seen, they are doing employee meals. So for restaurant industry employees that were like laid off and not currently working, so you could go in and during a certain time and pick up food to eat. And I think that was great. Phil and I, there was this really crazy moment. The day, so we had our Last Supper Club, I want to say the 12th or the 13th of March. And that week, which was like a Tuesday or Thursday or something.
No, it was the 5th because it's
anyways.
Yo, Google Calendar with the check.
I know.
Siri with the check.
I just remember it was 3 days before we had
the point is that on Sunday, I think it was, on Sunday, Phil and I went out. And it was like, we called it our last meal out because we had heard that this thing was going to be going down where restaurants were going to close. So we're like, fuck, where do we go?
Do you guys have like a portrait, like the last dinner with Christ? You guys are out there like,
some drink shots, some little foodie shots. But it was crazy because we're like, where do we go? And we have so many friends on the North Shore that own restaurants that we really wanted to support. But the Ledger and Opus just seemed to make the most sense because they're right next to each other. We can visit two at the same time.
And they're both delicious.
They're both so
shout
good.
Out Ledger and shout out Opus.
Yep. So those are two places.
Phil just can't even.
It was so good. So that's where we went for our last meal. I left Phil at Ledger to eat there, and when we got there, we saw Chef Dan, and we had a really interesting moment with him where. And this plays back in my head sometimes where we walked in, he saw us. He's usually at this like export at the station where where he's got like hawk eyes. He sees every guest that walks in. He like acknowledges the people that he knows.
He's so observant.
Such a badass move. So he saw us walk through the door, approaches us, and it was weird because it was at that moment where people were still shaking hands, but then some people just weren't. So we got real close to him. Phil put out his hand, but then he kind of, and I was going to give him a hug, but then it got weird. So, like, we kind of just did it. It was, one of those weird, awkward interactions.
Yeah, I mean.
Happened in, like, March.
Are we hugging? Are we high-fiving?
Well, I think it still happens. Because, like, when I see you guys today, I'm like, I want to, like, maybe give y'all hugs or say what's up. And you can't. It's just kind of, hey.
It was so weird.
I love it. I'm not a touchy-feely person.
When I think. Oh, my God, Phil. But when I think about it now, I just think to myself, I'm like, wow, that was like foreshadowing. Because things just got weirder after that, especially like with people interactions. That was the first moment that I had the whole like, do we shake? Do we get close?
Right. Oh, you're not cool with that? I'm cool with you're not cool with that.
Yeah. And then
which is
he had a lot of stuff on his shoulders at that moment because he had just let go. He had a break because we asked like, how are you doing? Which is like such a dumb question to ask in the beginning of COVID. And he was like, yeah, I just had to like let go, lay off like what did he say? Like a large majority of his staff. And it
was that wait staff?
Even back of the house, like everywhere, they made cuts. And this was the Sunday before the Monday where they shut everything down.
So it was literally the night before they shut it down.
He looked like he had just had like the roughest day of his life. Like he just been rolling a big boulder up a mountain. But that was when it really hit me where I was like, wow, fuck, this is not a fucking joke. This could be like a really long-term thing. People are hurting right now. And then I went to Opus and I sat at the bar. The restaurant, the food was closed down for the night. And I ended up sitting next to a waitstaff person. I didn't realize that. And he said that he showed up for his shift at 5, told him that his shift was cut. They weren't, things were slowed down, and that he was laid off. And he just been at the bar drinking. Since 5 o'clock, and I got there at like I want to say 8 or 9, and he just kept going. I mean, he was like literally fucked up, and he just like poured it out. He was very ranty. He poured his whole like soul out to me. He's like, I just quit my job at Bill and Bob's like 2 weeks ago. I was really looking forward to working at Opus. Right. This is like really fucking tough, dude. Like I can't believe this is happening. How am I gonna pay my rent? This was my only job. I left Bill and Bob's that had a drive-through window and probably could have like withstood what's going on to come here.
Bill and Bob's.
Yeah.
Keep moving forward.
Thank you. So he realized in that moment, like, holy fuck, my life's never gonna be the same again. But it was crazy because I think about those two instances and the restaurants that came out to really support the employees that were so affected by this, like, kudos to them because you think about, laid off, there's wait staff or whatever. Like, it sucks they lost their job. Like, it was devastating when, like, for people who worked in the food and beverage industry to get that. Awesome. Devastating. Fucked up a lot of people. Fucked a lot of people out. And you didn't even know how unemployment was going to work that day. You heard things about unemployment that they were going to be able to file for certain things and do this and that, but really no guidance on how to do it. So he was just sitting there, head in his hands, like, I'm screwed,
And I mean, there's just so much uncertainty, which is the sucky part. There's no roadmap, right? There's no okay, in a month, we'll be able to do this.
Yeah.
There's a plan of how we're going to do it, but there's so much interpersonal uncertainty about it that it's really tough because so much of the food industry is about a relationship. It's about you guys walking in, knowing the chef, saying, "Hey, how you doing? Oh, hey, I just got this in and we're going to try this on the menu." And then, interacting. But if you can't even do that, so much of it, once it becomes impersonal, the ledger or the opus just becomes like McDonald's, right? It becomes corporate. It becomes, okay, yeah, take your food and go. The relationship that's created, it isn't deep at all. It's very superficial.
The dynamic is completely different. And it's awkward to do that.
That's why a part of me is I'm glad that we're moving towards indoor dining, because that's the ad sell for an opus. That's the ad sell for a ledger. I shouldn't make my decisions on where to eat because it's raining outside. I should make my decisions on where to eat because the menu is badass.
Right.
So I'm appreciative that the government and the industry wants to move forward, but then I do get scared for the reasons that Phil was talking about. You have that trust issue with your neighbor. It's how do I trust this? Going into the space, is everyone going to be as respectful as?
Are they going to do temperature checks and nasal swabs? Everybody coming in,
I think they're going to do temperature checks. But you're right; it is such a trust in the other person because it's so you're all right. I've been social distancing. I have someone at my house who's immune compromised, and then I go out to eat, and I go out to eat with a friend I haven't seen in a while. We finally get together. We go to our favorite restaurant, and the whole time we can't even enjoy the menu that we love so much, because there's someone a booth over and we don't know what they've been doing. We don't know if they've been super exposed, etc. So it's just, and so where do you guys see, what changes have you seen being made that are super great? And what do you, in a year, where do you think we're going to be? Because right now we're in June of 20, and this is obviously hard to Nostradamus, but at the same time, is it essentially just going to be, one of my favorite places to eat in Beverly is Rapture. And Rapture was probably not harmed at all. And I haven't talked to them, but they're probably not harmed at all because their whole thing is you pick it up and you leave. You pick it up and get the hell out.
Yeah.
And it's a great business model because it keeps the overhead super small. They don't have a huge dining area. They don't have to have a public bathroom. They don't have to have all these things. And is that the future? Is that where we're going to go? Where Opus is essentially basically going to be come back at our back patio. That's where you pick up the food and scram. Or does Opus move to a garage and do that? You know what I mean? How are people going to navigate these things?
I want to start this off.
Phil's, I got this.
Go ahead.
So I feel you're going to see, there's going to be two major shifts in things. Is one that takeout and specifically delivery services, like the Uber, the DoorDashes, the
Grubhub,
takeout tech, all this shit is gonna increase tenfold. It's I know a lot of places where delivery has been up 400 to 600%. Not 4 to 6% or 40 to 60, 4 to 600% increase in delivery. And I don't think that's gonna change. I think with people just coming off staying 3 months at home and they just got used to delivery, saw all the means. I'm I ordered Amazon so much I don't even know what's coming today. I have a package coming and all this shit. Is that I think is you're gonna see that, and that's not gonna go away. And those, which I just want to say without getting too much into it, because I don't want to get too ranty. Those companies need to figure this shit out, because if you actually look into what they're doing, restaurants make almost no money off those orders.
And I think things are going to change with that.
They are, because
restaurants are putting their foot down. They're like, fine, I do have to do a delivery, but fuck you, Grubhub, fuck you.
A lot of those places, they will take 40% off the top of the order and then charge service fee, delivery fee,
40%. So let's do that out with real numbers, right? So you're saying if I get a $10 order,
$4 off the bat is going to the delivery.
$4 is going to the Uber Eats. We'll call it Uber Eats. I don't mind calling them out. We'll say Uber Eats takes $4, and then with the rest of the $6, maybe they take what, $1 for a fee, or how break down at $10 so people can.
So $10. So $4 goes directly to them. So okay, so you order it for $10. The menu item, the restaurant is charging you for $10. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
the Uber will charge, let's say, $12. Extra $2 are going to them. They will call that like maintenance fee or like
service fee,
whatever the fuck you want to call it. $4 of the $10 the restaurant should be getting is going to them. And then they will expect you to tip their driver because out of those $6 they just got, maybe $1 is going to the driver. And it's a system that for now is working because like people didn't have an option. Like I need like, for the first couple months you couldn't even go into places to pick up takeout. Like, so that is something that I think is going to be the future, but looking drastically different because if it's going to continue the way it is, it's cheaper just to get your own delivery drivers and hire somebody for $12 an hour plus tips.
Yeah.
Right, $12 an hour, get a moped, do whatever.
That's it.
So the future is definitely people hiring their own. They get a couple kids on bicycles. They're paying them $10-12 an hour because the kids are in high school and they can't get any work. They're not going to classes. They're bored. Also, and it's also potentially creating a great space for app developers to come in and say, we see the crap. Let's do this, and we'll do some kind of a rev share thing where we're driving the price way down. So we're not taking 40%. We're only going to take 15%.
Exactly.
And I mean, so that's great.
Yeah.
And the fucked up thing about that is, sorry, like I said, I don't want to go too much into it.
No, go into it.
A lot of these delivery companies, they have so much money in venture funding and angel funding is that they don't need to do it. Like they will take the 40% and lose money, but it doesn't matter because they have a $5 billion fund in venture capitalism so that they can just dip into whenever the fuck they want.
So it's just greed.
It's just pure greed. It makes no fucking sense. And I'm really interested to see the changes that's going to come from that. Because like I said, I think the takeout or the delivery is going to be huge, but just not in its current format. And I don't know what that's going to look like. Like maybe a bunch of restaurants start hiring, like you said, like the high school kids, like have a bike, make $12 an hour, get tips, like whatever. Right. So many restaurants do that it will force these companies to be like, oh shit, we're losing all our customers. What can we do for them?
Right.
Like, what do we need to change?
Right, because you could take, let's just say all the restaurants in Washington, they all get together and they all say, we're going to start using Salem Cycles Quick. I'm just making a name up. And you get
that sounds legit.
SalemCyclesQuick.com/careers. And you go on and, and they all do with bicycles. So it's green. And, they're going to charge, and it's all through tip. Maybe you don't even do it. Maybe it's just tip driven. The kids pick it up. They know they got to come pick an order. I pick up my $10 order. I go. And there's an understanding, I got to leave the kid $3 or $4, and it's all driven by tips or something like that. There is a way that's interesting to see because we will see that the market will say that if the restaurateurs are like, dude, we don't want to play this game, they're going to figure it out. All right, well, I got an old car, take my car, you have a driver's license, go.
Yep.
Or
hey, this is the way I have staff that I want to bring back. I don't have money for them in the restaurant. Hey, do you mind coming back and being a delivery driver now?
That's totally true.
A lot of these restaurants still have plenty of people that are like work for them, but they haven't brought back yet.
Right, they're furloughed they're just waiting.
As a delivery driver, like we have that position open now. If you don't have a job right now, wouldn't you say yes to that?
Yeah, and to be fair, so say I work at your restaurant and you had to lay me off, Phil, and I used to be a waiter or a waitress. I'm actually still a waiter or a waitress. My job is still taking the food from you and giving it to the customer and dealing with the money transaction. It's actually nothing has changed. It's just evolved.
It's just the way you do it.
Yeah, it's the medium through which you're going to deliver that service, which is, I think we're coming up. If someone's listening, someone's like, I got money. We're creating an app. We're creating an app.
And you're going to see that. And so that's the first thing I think is going to change. And the second thing I think is going to change is a lot of the way the restaurants do dining and shit is going to completely change as well. I think you may see a lot of...
Are you looking at my list?
No, this is from my own experience. Seeing this shit every day.
Are you looking at my list? Don't look at
my list. You steal shit from me, lady. As I think that, maybe a lot of, smaller restaurants and shit, something close to, like you said, Rapture, that maybe had a couple tables, are no longer going to have those tables. They're like, you know what? This is an easier business because maybe we don't have to have the servers, or maybe we can cut back on staff, only for a period of time. But, this is a good way to do it. That's the way I've been doing it. at the place I work that you can come in, get out, but like we used to have 52 seats and now we have 0. And at first it sucked because it's like, oh man, like I missed like having the people there, and like I had a lot of regular customers I used to talk to. But I'm like, you know what, this is kind of fucking great because it's like you still get what you want, you still get the product, and I still get to have my staff that work here. But like it's safer for everybody, and it's really interesting to see that. Like I even have a lot of customers that come to me that are like, this is like interesting, and they're like, they will talk to me like, do you think you're gonna get seats back? And I'm like, I have no idea. Like that's not my call to make. I'm not the owner. And they're like, I hope you don't. They're like coming in here and just like having the line, ordering what you want and get out. They're like, I love this. It makes it so much easier. And I thought it was going to be different, that people would be like, I want the seats back. I want to chill out. But so many people are like, this is fucking great.
I think for some businesses that might be fine. But I think for others, the reason why they're so successful is because of the hospitality. So I think some businesses can really thrive.
I think quick service businesses are going to take out seats, but like the Ledger, like full sit down restaurants are going to have that, but are going to change. I don't want to take a thunder on that one.
People go for the experience. Okay, so this is my list. I want to be quick about this. Okay, so I think food trucks, we're going to start seeing tons more food trucks. A lot of businesses that have closed down, their business models could easily be switched into food trucks. You're already served. You could go service breweries, do all that stuff. Outdoor patios, we know a lot of restaurants that just were in the process of being built, and now they're thinking about how do I make an all-weather outdoor patio associated with my blueprint, my plan.
Right.
You know, because the stationary ones, I mean, the ones that are remote or just satellite right now that they're putting up, those are great and everything, but if it's a crazy rainstorm, downpour, what are you going to do? And if you're building an establishment and you don't have a plan for or have that associated with it, you could have been one of these businesses that literally just had to shut down or couldn't create funds when other people were possibly thriving because they had an outdoor patio. So I think a lot of people are adding that into their blueprint. The other thing I think that's really going to take off is community kitchens. There aren't a lot here in Massachusetts. I can name just a very small inn that I could get to within like 30 miles. But I think more people are going to start creating their own food and bev like businesses, be a part of a community kitchen, and then do delivery from their community kitchen to people's homes. So not only are you now in a community space where you can share with other food and bev professionals, but you can get your food direct to your customers immediately with no middleman associated with it. Like you could do your own drop-offs. Smoothie businesses, people who are doing meal prep, cookies, like desserts, all that stuff, baked goods. Why not? You know?
Yeah, I think, and that is the natural response to the world that like has been created from the 90s, the early 2000s, and the last 5-10 years of this like Amazoning. Is like people actually want to get back to having the chef deliver the food, right? We want to get back to the personal. Yeah. And so I think and a lot of that has to do with cutting out all this middlemen that we just don't want to have to deal with, and the whole, the farm to fork movement and all that stuff. So I definitely think that is a potential future. And like, cause when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, that would be so awesome if this, the chefs at Ledger, if they just are like, yeah, come to my backyard. I bought 10 picnic tables. They're spread out all in my backyard in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. And I'm going to make you the same food and it's going to cost the same money. And that's what we're going to do. But we're going to take another break and we'll be right back. All right, so we're back with Phil and Daybar from Eat, Drink, Explore, and and I think I want to share with you guys, because all the points that you just, Phil, you had two points, and Day, you talked about 3 things, and about where the future of how restauranting, restaurateurs, I don't know even the name, the restaurant industry is going to go, and I want to share. So in 2013, I was in Colombia. And this is an experience that I was like, it was such a minor experience in my life, but it was always like, oh my God, technology this is a Skynet. Is this the Terminator? Like technology is real. And so it was in 2013. I was in Bogota, Colombia, the capital of Colombia. It's about the size of New York. Great food destination. It's a hidden food destination.
I've heard a lot of people talk about the food in
It in Bogota is phenomenal. And whenever this is over, I promise we will go and spend a week.
Okay, good.
And I have, friends who have restaurants down there, and it's just phenomenal. And so I was walking through Chapinero, which is a community there. It's up on kind of like a hill. So you could think of kind of like Beacon Hill, but behind it is just a big mountain. It's really beautiful.
Oh, wow.
And I went into a restaurant. I saw that they had they had their little menu of the day. I went in, and I don't remember necessarily what I ordered, but it was the experience. And so I walk in, and there's a little sign that says sit wherever you want. We've all seen that, right? No hostess. So I sit down, and this woman comes over, and she gives me an iPad. This is in 2013, right? This is 7 years ago. She gives me an iPad and says, slide it to open and choose what you want, and I'll bring it out. Enjoy. If you have any questions, ask me. Okay, so I get my iPad, slide, choose what I want, choose the toppings. Maybe I get a salad, maybe I get a burger. I don't necessarily remember. It was all swipe. It was all through photo. And then I said order. And then it said your order will be brought to you in, 10, 12, 8 minutes, whatever it was. And then the same woman brought me out my food. I ate. When I paid, I could use my credit card on that thing. And then I left.
Yeah.
And it forever changed and once again, I'm not a foodie. Well, I've never been in the restaurant industry. Well, I worked at Quiznos a couple summers, but I've never been, in the industry, as it were. Saying I worked at Quiznos is not the industry. People were like, are you serious? But I was like, oh my God, this is so impersonal. And it left a profound effect on me to start to think about. And then I read all these articles about truck drivers and when we have, the cars and the automated trucks and like, what are we going to do? And so the power of technology really kind of scared me. And it was technology is very powerful, which is not like a profound thing to say, but in its application to the way that the experience was always in restaurants was, you go, hey, what's your party? Great. Let me sit you here. It's kind of like a welcoming. Mm-hmm. Then when you're there, hey, I come over. Hey, my name's Dave. Hey, my name's such and such. I'm going to be your waiter. I'm going to be your waitress. That's another part of it, right? And then maybe the manager will come around and say, hey, how's your dining experience? There's all these touch points to bring the hospitality. And when I didn't have that, it was such a weird experience. And I guess my question is, without that hospitality, how are restaurants going to continue to move forward and create branding and messaging if they're just doing pickup, takeout? You know what I mean? Yeah. You're going to have like a jingle, like before you pick your food up, like, you know what I mean? So looking at that, I don't know. In that experience, and I've shared that with a couple people, but that was like crazy because my sister works in the restaurant industry. She works up in Vermont in a restaurant in Stowe, which is heavily built on tourism, right? Which is like, if we can't have people coming in to sit at our restaurants, what are we going to do? And so I've always really thought about that. And it's scary because I do see a future where all restaurants in the world are like that one in Bogota. And we already have that. I'm not saying McDonald's already has a thing where you can go in and you can push a button and you get your order.
People working there are the ones making food in back.
Exactly. And then that becomes such an impersonal thing. And then we forget the supply chain. We forget the power of who makes our food because now they're just kind of faceless. Yeah. And that's where we kind of are now with Amazon. When you order on Amazon, you're like, yeah, I got my thing in 45 seconds. I'm so happy. But there's so many other things that are tied to that decision. And when we vote with our wallet, that we often don't take into account because we don't see. And so I think moving forward, it's going to be interesting if everything does go to takeouts. That's why I love the idea of the food truck because you can still have the brand, you can still have the message, you could still have a semblance of the experience. And so I kind of want to put that out there and hear your thoughts on that because,
that honestly, everything you just said, just is like, I just zoned out for a second because
it was 7 years ago. This is what
that's what blows my mind. If you told me I went to a place last year, I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
2013, June of 2013. So literally almost 7 years ago, I was in Bogota.
That's fucking crazy.
And I was doing a little traveling on my own and I sat in this cafe. And when you're traveling on your own or you're going to a cafe, we've all eaten someplace by ourselves. You normally have a book, you have something else that you're going to interact with. Yeah. You're writing, maybe you're and that day I didn't have anything. And so to sit there and not have anyone interact with me, I'm sitting with this iPad. It didn't have games. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of what are we doing? This is also 7 years ago. And so I was like, the future for me, I'm like, I worry that would be the dining and it would just be so impersonal.
You know what I say to that is I say that the human nature we, like what you were just saying, we all crave personal contact, we crave hospitality. No, we really do. No, but think about it. When you go to the grocery store, right? Like, for example, the Stop and Shop near us now, they've implemented a lot more technology stuff, like the self-checkout. They even have not only do they have the self-checkout, they have the line where you can put your food on the conveyor belt and then it goes down to the bagging station, but you control the pad. So it's like a slightly different setup. But if you look at how many people are in line to have the human help them versus the technology thing, it gives me faith in society a little bit. I think places that have it where like that's the only way people, the only way to check out, people will usually utilize that. So I don't know. I think there's gonna be some pushback when everything tries to switch to like, for example, if somebody's given the choice of going to, like, let's say a ledger that's trying to do outdoor seating and patio and the human contact versus going to like the place where Phil works, where it's just in and out, even if they're serving the same food, we're going to see people try and crave to go to the hospitality spot a little bit more. As humans, I can't see it completely turning into a totally digital experience, especially when you're talking about food.
Neither can I. But I think it's going to be an interesting thing because I think the restaurants are like, we have to cover our overhead.
Yeah.
How can we do this? Right? And we're in New England and it's cold as shit. And who wants to sit out in January and have their whatever? They can't do it. So we have to cover overhead. Okay, we're going to do this takeout thing. But the market or the demand, excuse me, could be saying, we really want that restaurant experience. We want that human experience because sitting in a cafe and getting an iPad is so impersonal and it literally is cold. It's physically cold in your hands. And I just I started to think. And so forever from that, I will stand in the line in the supermarket. It's interesting you bring that up. I don't care if I wait 2 hours. I refuse. I've used the self-checkout, never personally myself.
Yeah.
I've only used it when I've been with other people. And when I shop with other people, like my ex hated me. Well, she didn't hate me, but she was like, "Oh, all right,
maybe that's
all right, you're valid. Maybe that's why I didn't work out." But it was like, all right, and she respected that, and that was great. But like, this is my thing. Whenever I go to the supermarket, I will only check out with a human because every time that you go with that technology, it's a tick. It's like, okay, 60% of people checked out last month. And, this month, last year was only 45. So that's going up. And slowly the human jobs are going to totally evaporate.
Yep.
It's super scary.
Very, very
It's super scary. And so I don't know. I don't
know. Like, I hate to say Zoom calls and stuff. And because I think there's even going to be a new platform developed for restaurants where you can, if somebody, let's say, checks out or takes out food, they can go online and maybe have an interaction on there or on another platform with the restaurant. You see a lot of restaurants trying to do Zoom calls where they have like special meals that they make and you can jump on a call and talk to the chef, do this and that, and while you're on there, there's other people's faces on there. Like, I have no clue. I'm just as baffled as you are with that. I think it's a discussion worth having because it will be an issue that restaurants are going to face where they need to figure out how to get the hospitality back in there if they end up having to go digital or satellite or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? Or
and I guess there's never been it's just your branding and message now. It just becomes so, there's a I'm going to divert a little bit, but there was a Vice about this guy in Israel, and I can send you if you haven't seen it, but he does hamburgers. He does cheeseburgers, hamburgers, and he only makes 200 a day. And if you want one, you have to hit him up on WhatsApp. So you would hit me up and say, hey, I want a couple of hamburgers. He sells them for $50 each. And with the $50 each, apparently it's an amazing hamburger, but the people who bring it to you always come dressed up in a certain way. And and then you get black gloves when you wear it. And so it's like this thing and it's become viral. And so he'll have he only does 200 a day. So he makes it super exclusive, right? And when the world's built off exclusivity. Yeah. And so, and he has back orders of like 3 years.
It's crazy.
And so that's what restaurants are going to adopt. Like an Opus, they're going to send someone out who's going to give you your food, who's going to walk you through the food. Hey, you got this burger and that beef was raised on a Vermont farm, a grass-fed farm and really trying to create the branding and message, but it becomes a lot more of like an entertainment thing, because that is part of the thing of going to a restaurant too. When you have a great waiter or waitress who's so knowledgeable and there is an entertainment and we love to be entertained. It's why most of the people who are listening have a Netflix account.
Exactly. They definitely, I think that sounds really interesting actually. But the other issue restaurants are going to be faced with is, I mean, how many of us go to a bar to meet someone new? Or to sit at a bar and maybe bump into someone
to
and start a
network.
conversation. Exactly. So that's going to be another obstacle to try and figure out. And that's where, like, being on, I don't really think Zoom's going to be the way, but being on some kind of, like, digital platform where you're sharing in a similar experience to other people and you can see other people and, like, sharing in that too. There's something behind that. If someone can figure out a way to make that happen, for restaurants or something, I think there's something behind that.
So I'm going to go with completely different approach from what you two said.
Not antisocial Phil.
Not you, Phil.
I know.
Not you. Everyone gets pods and eats in their pods. There are no couple pods. Yeah, there are no couple pods.
No, I think so. I'm gonna go a different direction. All right. So my answer is, it sounds contradictory, but follow me, and I promise you it's not. So I think. So I'm going to start off by saying that I don't think in the food industry and the hospitality industry, it's going to change all that much to where like everything's automated and robots, because you can't do that. To get the real experience of food, you need like a real person who knows how to work it. You guys were talking about earlier, we were all talking about earlier, how food's an art form. I don't think people realize how much. A great chef to me is up there with like a great sculptor, a great artist, a great writer, whatever it is, because they have taken a blank canvas and turned it into something that you can consume and appreciate. And that's the whole point of that. And so I don't think you'll ever be able to do that with food, because you will lose that touch and people don't want to lose it. But all the reason you guys were saying about how people crave the interaction and how you meet people there. You could, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think it'd work well.
But I think in society at large, we are at a tipping point with a lot of things, with the Black Lives Matter movement, and this whole, obviously, pandemic has changed like a lot of people's mindsets. Companies are now saying, do more remote work at home. I think a lot of like real estate developers are going to be hurting, because companies are going to be like, why are we paying $10 million a month for this giant office when we can just have everybody do it at home and rent a space once a month to do a big corporate meeting? Like, I think a lot of shit is going to change, and a lot of things in society almost at reaching a tipping point. It's not there yet. And to me, I think a big answer to that question is which way society goes. Is it afterwards that and I don't want to get to like deep state.
To #deep state.
But, I think a lot of people are having their eyes open to really who runs this country, and I'm going to leave it at that. And I think if they consolidate their power and consolidate their money, it is going to go more in the way of like automation, because that's efficiency. That's the most efficient way to do it. Machines don't need breaks. Machines, you don't need to pay them hourly salaries, all that shit.
They don't need health insurance.
They don't need health insurance. You don't need to feed them and house them and all this shit. So I think if it goes a certain way, I think you will see more automation. But I think it's going to go the other way, where it's going to be more about community and more about society and more about the interaction.
And that's why it's important.
I think that's what will win out at the end.
That's why I'm glad you said that. That's why it's so important that us as like regular people we have to be careful where we're spending our money, because the people who did well during this time, what a lot of big businesses did. They're the ones who got the PPP loans. They're the ones who got the business. They're the ones who were able to do.
They're the ones who always come out on top. Yeah. In every fucking situation,
so
and I think that may change them.
Imagine if people continue to keep supporting them, right, to where they can grow, they're able to flourish, get new locations. They're also the same businesses that could probably go, go automatic, right?
Yeah.
They could go and get every single burger looks the same.
Of them do.
All the French fries get fried the same exact way.
90% of warehouses and factories now, and it's all machines, where 50 years ago it was workers on those lines.
Exactly. So that's why I think it's so important to support your local businesses, because they're not going to be able to do that. They wouldn't do that. The human connection is way too important to them. They're not going to fire all of their people because they have extra money now, and rather than investing it back into the community, they're just going to invest it back in their own business.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I think it is. I think what's going to win out in the end is like the supporting local and support the mom and pop chain down your street and everybody coming together. Like I think you're going to see more things like community gardens and community farms and people, growing their own food and getting more involved, more invested in their local community, as opposed to like, I'm going to work for this big business and now I'm going to go spend all my money at the big businesses. I think you're going to see a shift in how people spend their money.
Also, something that I was thinking about the other day is Phil and I got really narrow-minded during this pandemic because we obviously we love restaurants, we love supporting them, that's what we do. But I think we neglected to see how many people were actually not going to restaurants and not doing takeout because they were trying to, reserve their money. Usually going out to eat is like something you do when you have money and or as a special occasion. So if you're hurting and you're laid off from work, you're probably making sandwiches at home. You're probably cooking from your house, going to the grocery store a lot more. And that's another direction that things could go. Kind of like what you're saying, people making things in their backyard, taking the food and beverage industry into their own hands to provide something for themselves.
I love that idea.
Yeah, and then that's what Phil was saying, because, I was listening, preparing for this, I was listening to a lot of your episodes, and like, I love that, Phil gives intimate cooking classes. And like, that could be a future, like where you just have like 6 picnic tables set up, and you have couples or friends around each table who are socially distancing together, and they're in their little pods, and Phil's up front. And he's like, now we're going to do this and this and this, and that sounds weird, but also if that existed right now, there would be a line out the door, because people would jump at that experience. And one of the other things I think is that with all this takeout, people have had to actually like break their homes in again, because I know so many young homeowners who have dining rooms that look nice. They never sit there. They never sit there. Yeah. And people are actually having to do that. And so like, back in the 50s and the 60s in, post World War II America, where the boom happened and, all these new homeowners and all this stuff, there was like the whole, we're going to sit around and eat dinner. Yeah. And like, I think people are actually doing that again, because you're not like waiting, someone gets home from work at this time, someone gets home. If people are unemployed or either they're working from home, there are a lot more around that. And so people also have time to prepare food. And so the relationship with food in many ways is becoming more, it's becoming real again, a lot more authentic. When I feel like in the past, God, we had so many years of just like, your separation to understanding where even the food came from it was just like, that's good, I'm going to eat it. And so I think that, like you're saying, about making stuff at home, people have had to re-engage and be like, wow, we actually need to get new stuff to cook at home. Yep. We're not prepared. Yeah. And so it's just, I don't know, the food industry is so fascinating because it is such a big part of our economy. As far as, the amount of people that it provides jobs and employment for.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up. Do you guys want to share where we can find you on social?
Yeah, so you can find us at eatdrink_. I already messed up. It's eatdrinkexplore_podcast on Instagram. You can look us up at eatdrinkexplore podcast on Facebook. We have a Twitter. There's not much on there.
Don't worry. Yeah, if you're not using it, don't.
There's not much on there. But yeah, we'd love for you guys to listen to our website. We'd love for you guys to listen to our podcast. If you're really into food and learning more about it, that's where we go crazy. Yeah,
and you can please reach out to them, especially if you're not located in the North Shore or Massachusetts, and you hear this and you want to do a collab with them. Reach out.
We'd love that. DM
reach
us.
Out. One of the best
expand outreach.
Yeah, and one of the best things about Phil and Daybar is they're constantly evolving and they're adapting to become better, because it used to be called Eat, Drink, Explore North Shore,
right?
But they wanted to go essentially global and just not put any walls around what they're doing. Just say, we're down for whatever. So please reach out to them.
We would love that.
And thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us. This is a lot of fun. I feel like we got some of our food and bev anxiety out.
You
like
got it
out?
Therapy
session. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
This is great. Yeah.
Just don't charge us $400 an hour.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.